sweet peas. We are trying to go live. This is me, Meenadchi. Jen Gergen is going to be joining me shortly, and we are going to be talking about all things DNVC, and we'll see what happens. In the meantime, I am going to tell you about some peanuts that I had that were delicious. Hello, hello, hello. There is. All right. What is, oh no. Let's see.
It happening?
Yeah!
I don't get it. I really don't get it. And I appreciate your fortitude to hang on.
The tech
And
gods are playing games with us. They're cute.
well, what's so odd too is I can hear you, thankfully, but I can't see you.
Oh,
So I'm putting up a way to see you on my computer behind my phone because I do want to be able to see your face. So we're going to get this.
we are.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Also, I don't know if this is okay. This might be asking too much because of the way the live has us. There, we're solid now.
Yes.
Super. It's good to see your face.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I'm going to take a deep breath with everyone who notices that we're live. We'll just take a moment, acknowledging for those that might need a visual description. I am a fair-skinned white woman. I have my brown shag hanging down. There's plants and light coming in behind me. There's art. I'm in my studio. I'm wearing very fun overalls and a big, ridiculous flower. And I am occupying Wapekute land. So I invite Meendachi, if you would be willing to give a visual description for us, I would love for them to know.
Yeah. My name is Meenadchi. I use she, her pronouns. I have brown skin, beautiful eyebrows, and my hair is kind of black and coiffed. I am sitting in front of a brick wall and wearing like one of my favorite floral sweatshirts, and it's good to be here with you.
Gosh, thank you again. And for those just joining, it has been a little bit of a roller coaster with trying to get tech to work for us. So I just feel a little like I needed some celebration, I think, because the world has been so heavy. So having this finally work is bringing me some joy. And I'm grateful to share it with you. So we're on Meendachi's platform, but this is an IG live series that I do talking to different NVC practitioners. And I'm most intrigued by Meendachi's work because of her book, Decolonizing Non-violent Communication. So I'm excited to just discuss that. But if you're ready, I would love to just open up with asking you if there's anything you'd like to share about your NVC journey. And maybe that's how you were introduced to it, or maybe just what you feel most compelled by it. Just however you want to share your journey.
Sure. I feel very fortunate. The way I was introduced to nonviolent communication, and for folks who don't even know what NVC is, nonviolent communication is a really lovely communication modality that teaches us ways to take ownership of our feelings and needs, understand what's going on for us, so that we can articulate, communicate, express in ways that are not so shame and blamey, but that are invitations to connect, right? I was home from college for winter break, and my family is from Sri Lanka. And my amma was like, "There's a woman who's doing a fundraiser to go home and teach nonviolent communication." And both my amma, that's my mother, and I were like, "I don't know what that thing is, but we got to find out who that woman is." So that woman was Jayanti Siva, who I call Jayanti Akka. I'm very glad to have her as my big sister in this way. And so she introduced us to nonviolent communication. And it has been a journey. I feel like my relationship with my amma has been better tracking.
Mm. And just for those who might be also experiencing this, I'm getting a little bit of audio digitalization. At some point, you probably digitized and dropped out for me. So I apologize if it's from my end, where I'm so determined to fight these tech gremlins.
Hi, Jen. We're having so many comical tech things happen. My English, will you tell me again what you just said so that I can be with you?
Yes, Yes, just that we are experiencing these tech issues, and that if we fall over each other, it's because there's like a digitization, a lack of flow. Like, so I'm going to request of myself to just allow for those silent pauses so that I'm sure not to step on you. So that's what I'm going to reach for today.
Okay.
So I look forward to hearing anything more that you'd like to share about your journey. Where I left off was you naming your Amma is a great place for you to practice that.
Yeah. There wasn't much more that I said. I mean, I've had many other pieces of my journey. I think so I started taking NVC more seriously after an argument with my mother. And at the end of the argument, she was very grounded and I was very dysregulated. And I was like, no, whatever she's doing, I need to do it better because I cannot have her. I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, if we fight, I'm going to win. So if she's learning a tool that's helping her stay calm, I'm going to learn that tool more so that I can stay more calm. So I started studying NVC seriously in 2006. And then 2011, I was kind of at like a crossroads of like, do I pursue certification? What do I do with this? And it was just feeling weird, y'all. It was feeling gunky. It was weird. At the time, I did not have language to be able to articulate that the spaces were just too white. They didn't match. And there were power dynamics that weren't being addressed. So I left NVC spaces. But I took the tools everywhere I went. And I was working in suicide prevention and rape crisis advocacy. So a lot of places where like deep listening and empathy is really needed and wanted. And then in 2017, Jayanthika asked me to come assist at an IIT that she was teaching at. And it was the first, and to my knowledge only, 10-day NVC retreat that acknowledged that systems of power and privilege exist and that they play a role in the way we speak to each other. And it was just so much fun. It was really nice to be in shared community. And I sort of realized that there had been a gatekeeper in my own head, kind of like preventing me from putting my own spin on the work with my own lens. And so that's when I started forming the DNVC framework that I have, which incorporates listening to the body, which asks us to think about power dynamics and impacts of trauma. And also that creates space for authenticity and a little bit of flavor. Like however you want to say the thing is how you want to do it. It's what matters is that it works, that it feels effective, that it feels honest and true.
I'm really appreciating how rich your answer is, and not just giving us context into your own journey, but giving more context around NVC and the cause and case for decolonized NVC. So that is actually a great segue into the next question I would like to ask you, which is, what do you find most challenging or problematic about NVC?
So I think any tool, right? Any tool is just a tool. It depends on how we use it. And I think what I see in conventional NVC spaces is that people will kind of say and do things like nobody else is responsible for your feelings or for your emotions, which, okay, yes, that's true. But actually, there's some fluidity there, right? We're interdependent. We take care of each other. The way I do or don't show up impacts you. And it is also true that when I'm able to be in ownership of my experience, it's easier for us to connect, right? And easier for us to find a way forward. I think conventional NVC, I really don't do. So conventional NVC offers this 4-step framework of making an observation, naming your feeling, identifying your needs, and then making because observations actually interrupt our trauma responses. They hold us accountable to like understanding what am I really experiencing, what's actually activating me. Is it actually what's happening in front of me that I'm responding to, or is it like my history, right? But there are many things that cannot concretely be observed. So an observation is not a gold standard. It is a piece of something in how we communicate. And then when I teach my DNVC model, it does not end with a request. It ends with access to choice. It ends with choosing how you want to move forward from here. Because in some moments, yes, I do want to make an ask of you, but other times I might need to set a boundary. Other times the healthiest thing for me might be to walk away. Other times the healthiest thing might be to say, fuck the fuck off, this is some bullshit, right? So really what matters is anchoring into your authenticity and moving from choice. And a lot of what I find is that when we do the good emotional work of like, let me sit with my feelings long enough, let me actually understand what is true. Yeah, a lot of the times I do want to make a request because I do want to stay connected, you know, but like that's not the requirement. That's not the guarantee of where we go. Conventional NVC really, I think, frequently moves towards like that you always have to stay connected, and that it's just sometimes it's just too much. It's not how everybody operates. It's not healthy for us.
Yeah. Oh, so, and I'm watching it resonate too in the chat. Oh my gosh, this is so rich and powerful. And I agree in that. In the conversation I had with Roxy Manning in our live, we talked about the observation stage and how it is dangerous to, as you know, being in NVC practicing sessions, like they will often say, make observations as though a video camera recorded it. But even with video camera footage, two people looking at that footage will impart different messages, particularly if there is identity at play or lived experience. And so I love the focus of that. And I love so much that you demonstrate and model the concept of nonviolent communication doesn't mean soft voices and everybody gets along and we're nice to each other. It's about authenticity and presence for what's alive. And that being my boundaries might be what are alive, or honoring yours or whatever. So I often joke and tell people like, oh no, I'll teach you how to say fucking NVC. Like it's, so I'm resonating and enjoying the flavor of which you answered that question. So, okay, so let's talk about your book. So in Decolonizing Nonviolent Communication, for those that just joined, this is the book, and you can find a link to that on my website, certainly on Meenadchi's as well, addressing the limitations of NVC. I know that that's what your book is doing, but I wonder if you just say a little bit more about how is the book doing that?
Will you say that one more time? Because it kind of got choppy.
Sure, no problem. I said I think what I'm asking is how is your book addressing the limitations of traditional NVC?
Oh, I don't know that I think about it as addressing the limitations of NVC. I think it offers my take on NVC, right? It's less, I hope, I don't actually know, but I hope that the book is less like a critique or criticism of what was tried, what didn't work, whatever, and more like, here's a way to do the thing that feels good, at least that feels good for me, right? So like there's references to the body, there's invitations to feel the body and develop a relationship with like what's happening here and how do I listen to my sensory cues as opposed to just intellectualizing what's happening. There's a lot of journaling and reflection prompts to get folks into thinking about like, what are the trauma dynamics that might be happening here? What are the ways that I've been maybe conditioned out of my authenticity? Like, how have I been conditioned not to celebrate the fullness of my life and the fullness of my voice? And how can I find that way forward? And then I think really this piece around choice of you get to choose, right? Like one of the things I talk about, like there are things in my own life, things like ways in which I have been impacted. It is a choice for me to consistently look for the humanity in those people, but that's a choice I make because it aligns with my values and it's also within my capacity. That isn't the right way of being for everybody. In my practice, I have met and known many people who have been so impacted and so disenfranchised from their own bodies and from their own voice that the idea of holding space for somebody else's shenanigans is just not possible. They like justifiably want and need to spend decades, if not generations, just reclaiming access to self and just reclaiming access to a sense of dignity. And if that's what's true for you, then good, do that. Again, what matters is that we just find what's true for us and then live into that.
Mm. I appreciate the reframing of that, that the book isn't necessarily about a critique or even the fact that it is a reframe, but just a more authentic access for people who might not be understanding conventional NVC in a way that is working for them. And I appreciate just the re-indigenization of some of these concepts. So another question I have about the book is, I know that, like, for instance, mine, I know is a second edition. And I'm curious, like, what is meaningful to you about the changes between the first edition and the second edition, if you're willing to say?
So many changes, and also changes that I don't remember. And I think even now, if I would write it again, it would be a changed version again, because I am a different person with a different set of life experiences. And so what I hope is that the different editions can offer can live as like a little bit of like a testament. Mm-hmm. We're allowed to change. We're allowed to grow. We're allowed to be different. Like for better or for worse, the bittersweetness of life is that for many of us, we've been conditioned out of knowing what feels good or what feels true. And there are often pendulum swings, you know what I mean, in terms of like reclaiming access to yourself or reclaiming access to your voice. So we're always just on the learning journey of figuring it out. And I hope that that's what, like, whether you have the first edition, second edition, whichever, I hope that that's what comes across.
Mm-hmm. So one suggestion that I have for some of the tech stuff, because I'm following you, but I can tell that we are having some trouble. I wonder if us both turning off our video and going off audio alone might help solve some of the connectivity issues. What do you think about that?
I'm game to try. I don't know if I know how to turn my video off.
So if you look at it, I think you'll see like a little microphone to indicate you can mute, and then a little kind of camera view. And so I think like right now, I'm no longer on camera.
Great.
But I can't see you anyway. Yeah. So it's no difference for me if you figure out how to do it. And maybe just me turning off mine will help. I don't know. But maybe solving some of that bandwidth might help. So while you kind of look for that button, I wonder if you can multitask and answer, like, what is the greatest takeaway you would like your readers to gain from the book? Or maybe what it differentiates it most from other resources, other than already named, of course.
The greatest takeaway, the greatest takeaway that I hope folks will take from the book is listen to yourself. Listen to your own gut, listen to your own voice. That's the most important source of everything. So cultivate as strong of a relationship as you can with that. Don't give away your sense of choice. Don't give away your sovereignty. Just listen to you, and let the way you listen to yourself also be something that evolves and changes and blossoms.
I can tell already our choice to do this is perfect, because I heard you so much more clearly, and I love it. I love that we're finding a better access and appreciating the comments of flexibility and flow that we're modeling. So I'm glad it's being noticed by our guests. Yeah. Oh, so obviously I've mentioned over and over, friends, but definitely get access to this book. If you don't have it already, it's probably the best NVC resource. And I've been training NVC since 2008 with Marshall Rosenberg. So I would like to say I've got a pretty good access to a lot of different NVC resources. So take that for what I mean it to be. So in the references section, because I read everything. I love reading I noticed the second edition, like I get deep. And so when I was looking at your references section, of course, you name many brilliant and revolutionary colleagues that supported your creation of this book. One of my favorites being Roxy Manning, who I already mentioned. But you also name your Amma, who you talked about at the beginning of our call, and quote, whose commitment to non-granola NVC has perhaps been my jolliest joy of all, which I love the framing of that. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear more stories that inspired this dedication, if you're comfortable sharing more, especially because we couldn't hear you as clearly as I would have liked at the beginning.
Yes. I think one of the things that I love about my Amma is my Amma is not a woo-woo, flu-flu person. She is not someone who will sit in her feelings. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I think it's really healthy and good. I think a lot of times people learn communication tools and then they want everybody to talk like them, and they want it,
Yeah.
right? Because that creates ease. It's like if we're speaking the same language, yes, 150% it creates ease. But the reality is the purpose of any communication tool is for us to be able to connect with people that matter to us. So what's more important than other people talking the way we talk is for us to be able to understand ourselves well enough to be able to communicate with whomever we come across, regardless of who they talk, of how they talk. So I love the fact that my amma has probably given me a really good balance, because there's ways in which she uses conventional NVC tools. Like, I think a story that I often share is that we were in the middle of an argument, probably like at this point maybe 15 years ago, and she said to me, she said "Maha," which means like daughter, when she said something like, there's a point where when we're in an argument, your voice goes flat and you get very quiet. And she said, when you do that, my needs for care don't get met. Can you keep your volume up when we're talking to each other? You can say whatever you want to say, but can you keep your volume up? And for folks who are less familiar with, nonviolent communication tools, what my Amma did there, she made an observation. So the thing that upset her, like caused some type of reaction in her, is my voice going flat. Her feelings, her needs, she felt sad and she wanted to feel a sense of care. And then she made a concrete request, right? Something I could tangibly do, which was to keep my volume up. So it's something that I will just kind of like spinning off of this story, right? Like, in the way that I teach nonviolent communication, you have a choice in how you respond. So if I was talking to somebody else, I might say, my voice is going to do whatever it's going to do, and you can decide if you want to be in conversation with me or not. Because of the particular relationship that I have with my Amma, which is a relationship where I want to build vulnerability, one, I had to acknowledge that she read me for filth, because really what was happening is that although my voice was going flat, what was really happening is that I was blocking her out. I was putting up a wall to sort of like, internally what happens for me when that happens is like, there's a feeling in my body of like, she is too much to deal with, and I'm just blocking her out. So when I keep my voice at like a whatever level, it changes the physiology of my body so that I have to stay open. And that's a choice I choose to make when I'm in relationship with her. But so what I love about me and my Amma is that she will sometimes do things like that, but then other times we'll just like, I don't know, it's just like you can really mix vibes, and it's not, it really is about like being in practice versus being in perfection.
Yes. I often say people that we practice formula, we do not live formula. And I would probably credit Mickey Cotton for the work she does around naturalizing NVC. That really helped me to decolonize that very formulaic way of abusing or using or weaponizing or creating a tool out of NVC rather than an embodied language. Oh man, take that, friends. I hope it came through clear for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a beautiful story, and I love the ways people can see the different ways that it's used, and that ultimately it's also not about forcing the outcome of somebody receiving the language you're using, but building fortitude and resiliency to handle in whatever way they do react. And whether that is, to your point earlier in the call, of setting a boundary, because I don't have to hold still for your bullshit. I tell people all the time, you don't owe anybody empathy except for yourself. So read the room. And if you don't have the capacity for it, then move along. Don't ring bells you can't unring. Do some self-empathy and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Any other stories that you would like to share?
Another, I was at an event and a microaggression happened, a racial microaggression happened. And for folks who don't know, Leonie Smith is also a phenomenal facilitator and trainer with a decolonial lens. And I walked up to Leonie and
I'm sorry to interrupt. Say her name one more time, because you did digitize and I really want to capture it. What was the name of that resource one more time?
Leonie, Leonie Smith.
Thank you. There we go.
Yeah. And I also like, listen, I'm getting older. I'm like, is that actually Leonie's last name? But it is. But so I walked up to Leonie and I told her what happened. And she looked at me and she goes, "Yep." And that was it, y'all. That was the empathy, guys. Like, that was the care. Like, empathy doesn't have a particular way that it's supposed to sound. What empathy is, I talk about empathy as like a radio wave. Like, you know, when you're like turning a radio dial and trying to catch the station, the moments when we catch the station with each other is what empathy is. It's when we're in resonance, it's when we're listening. It's not when I'm taking other people's feelings into my body or any of those things, but it's just that ability to be present and accurate with each other. And so, yeah, just another example of like empathy can live in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to sound like what you read out of a book.
Thank you for that. Oh, I don't want to tempt the tech god for too long, so I'm going to ask one final question, and it might be kind of be putting you on the spot, so push back if I am. But I believe I understand the somatic experience of embodying NVC, and I know that it's very important to your work. It's something that I struggle with personally, and so I basically need your work. But this concept, particularly those of us who are white-bodied individuals, we struggle with this. And I'm just wondering if you're able to help us understand what that means more clearly. And then here's putting you on the spot. If maybe there's some guided practice you'd be willing to help walk us through right now, I would deeply appreciate it. But you are in full choice, of course.
Okay. So I grew up in a culture where I was taught that literally everything is a part of everything. So like right now I can see a wall, I can see a desk, I can see a water bottle. And I was raised in a culture that taught me that I am literally inside of that desk. I am literally inside of that water bottle. I am literally inside of that wall. And also that wall is literally inside of me. Like the idea that everything that exists is both within us and that we are part of everything that exists. And so part of what that means is that when we feel connected to this particular way of being, that there is genuine connection between all of us, there's a higher likelihood that we'll be able to act and move in a way that keeps everybody's needs on the table, or, you know, as much as we can in many different ways. And I think for folks who are, maybe for folks for whom this is like a newer concept, I would invite you to think about places where you've been, where you both feel small as well as part of something bigger at the same time. Like when you're at the ocean and the water is just so big and so present, or like when you're in the forest and just like looking up at the sky, and both there's a sense of like, whoa, there's so much out there, and also a sense of like, I'm part of that. Those are some of the moments I think that we can use to start weaving those threads of remembering connection within our body. And so what I might offer to listeners right now is just to like slow down, first what I'll say is just like put your hand on a part of your body that calls you. Might be your stomach, might be your chest, might be your leg. Just like bring your hand to some part of your body. And then pause and notice if you feel different after bringing your hand to that part of your body, after connecting with yourself in that particular way. And if the answer is yes, see if you can notice what feels different. And some simple starting places are, do you feel hotter or colder? Do you feel more constricted or more relaxed? And I think when we're in like a really good flow state of connection, usually there's a sense of openness, there's a sense of expansion. And I think about, I feel like I'm going in different kind of tangents, but like when I think about navigating conflict, sometimes I think about how can I find the openness in my body? How can I reverse engineer? Where can I find the my body so that I can remember that I am connected to the person who I am speaking with. So I can remember that the person I'm talking to is not my enemy, but in some way is a part of me. Um, so those are some thoughts, Jen, how to do.
That's perfect. And thank you for letting me put you on the spot. It is a part of NVC that is so often skipped over too quickly. And I, in my own work, have been trying to bring people into the focus of that while acknowledging my own lack. And so sometimes I'll tell people, like, I'm just your big sister who took algebra the year before you. Like, I'm on this NVC journey of learning and decolonizing with everybody. And so I'd love to ask you one final question about just the practice of DNVC in your own community. How can we support that? I know you don't have any courses this summer, but like, is there a best way to follow you to stay connected to your work outside of obviously purchasing this book, the Decolonizing Non-violent Communication, which you can find in links in my bio?
Yeah, I do have courses this summer. The course that I'm offering this summer has already started. It's my reflective listening class, which I teach every summer. But folks are welcome to come join my practice group. I offer a monthly practice group, one for all folks and one for BIPOC, where we do both deep listening practices, somatic healing, as well as ancestral healing activities. And then, honestly, I love vibes and rides for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, is this something you want to get deeper into? If so, yes, get the book, join a practice group. In the fall, I'm actually going to be teaching a class. I don't actually know what the curriculum is yet, but it's going to be content around healing from friend breakups. Because I think that's a place that we just, right? Like, nobody ever expects to break up with a friend per se, and it puts for me, it put a lot of my shit to the test. And I
Well,
would
your
just say,
TEDx
like,
is around that, correct? If folks aren't
yeah,
familiar with your TEDx, they should watch that because it definitely speaks to the
yeah,
beauty of that.
yeah. So yeah, those are some ways. And then, the ways you can stay in touch with me are my website, meenadchi.com, here on Instagram. And I'm also getting my LinkedIn game on, so you're on there as well.
Nice. Oh, friends, thank you for the fortitude of hanging in through the different tech difficulties that have spanned time. And we have made it through. Deep, deep gratitude to you for holding on and being present and having this conversation with us. I so look forward to hearing how the conversations that come from what this is inspiring. I see many beauty at, and I'm loving. I hear Sarah saying, I am really enjoying the resonance between Meenadchi's explanations, examples, and the way I have experienced Gen coaching NVC. And I could not take greater compliment. Thank you. Thank you, Meenadchi.
Thank you, Jen.
Peace and ease in a very turbulent world, my friends. Thank you for being with us today.
Bye, all. Oh my gosh. Yo, I don't know how to end this.
Well, I hope you'll
Let
hit
me
the share
see.
button so we
Maybe I'll
can
just
see
press
that
this button.
replay. I would
Okay, I'm
love
gonna
to
try.
be
I'm
able
gonna
to
try
have that.
this. Here we go. Okay, here we go. We're ending.